of the best-selling authors in the world, but will you recognize his name? Stay with us today on Deeper Living.
From coast to coast across North America, this is Deeper Living, bringing the inspirational marketplace to your front door. We exist to bring you the latest and greatest from authors, artists, and artisans around the world. You're going to love this.
Welcome to Deeper Living. I'm your host, Ginger Garrett, and I am joined by one of my favorite authors and a friend, Cecil Murphy. Cecil, welcome.
Thanks, Ginger.
Now, you have one of the most interesting careers in the world. You are a ghostwriter. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this.
In 1982, I wrote this marvelous novel. It was absolutely wonderful. And I sent it to an editor, and he came to Atlanta, and he took me to lunch. I thought, wow, this is great stuff. He threw the manuscript across the table. He said, I don't like it.
Oh, no.
So I'm thinking, so why am I here for lunch? He said, you know, I think you have a gift.
Wow.
He said, I think you know how to get inside other people when you write. I said, I do? And he said, yeah. And he said, I have a book I want you to do. And so now I'm getting smart. I said, well, of course, you know.
Yeah.
So it was, singer was then fairly popular. B.J. Thomas, Raindrops Keep Falling Away. So I did his autobiography.
Wow.
And they liked it. And I did another one, and they liked it. And so, you know, I never planned to be a ghostwriter. It just happened.
Wow. So in those beginning books, was your name on the cover, or that was something that came later?
That came, actually, Gifted Hands was the first book that had my name on the cover.
Fantastic. And Gifted Hands is a huge breakout success.
Yeah, you know, it came out in 1990, and then 2 years later, the follow-up book called Think Big came out. And I think Gifted Hands has sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 million, and
wow.
Think Big hasn't done quite so well. It's like 1.5 million or 2 million, you know. Yeah, right. But I'm still getting royalties on all that. It was just one of those wonderful opportunities. A publisher came to me and said, hey, we've got this doctor.
Yeah.
And he had just done a phenomenal surgery. He's a head of he's black, he's head of the pediatric neurosurgery division or department of Johns Hopkins. First African-American ever to do that, the youngest person ever to be the head of a department. And he had just separated what they then called Siamese twins. Now they call it conjoined twins. And he is one of the few people that can do the joint at the head.
Wow.
The back, the legs, people can do that, but he does remarkable surgeries. And I just was so enamored with this fellow and his life. This kid couldn't read in 5th grade.
Wow. So he wasn't this, no one had expected him to become such an incredible neurosurgeon.
No, and see, what makes the story so wonderful is Ben Carson was virtually illiterate. His mother, who was illiterate, but he didn't know it, made him go to the library and check out 2 books every week and write book reports, which he couldn't read.
Oh.
And by the end of 6th grade, he was at the top of his class, and before he finished high school, he had a full scholarship to Yale.
Wow.
And so that shows the influence of a mother. But just such a great story. He does phenomenal work. But more than that, you know, he's just one of the nicest people I've ever met.
And so what's that process like when you're introduced to someone, you're going to be writing their story? How did you begin to get to know him and step inside his shoes?
Well, his was easy because, number one, there were an awful lot of articles about him. So one of the things that I do, if they're already famous, I say, send me significant articles, but find at least one article you feel really captures you. And there was a wonderful article in the Detroit Free Press. He's from Detroit, so they really got him.
Yeah.
When I did Franklin Graham, for instance, the one he said that was the best was from Gentleman's Quarterly, and it really did capture him. So there's usually 1 or 2 which help me in kind of, you know, planning and plotting it, so that I go and take a theme and work with that. But with Ben, it was so easy. I had a lot of material. I knew who he was, and you know, I just let him talk, taped everything, and the way I put it is, I just try to absorb who he is.
Right.
And then I write. So, you know, that's all I.
Is that scary for you the first time you turn over a draft to someone you're working with?
Not anymore. Here's what I do. I usually write 1, 2, 3 chapters, send it while they're working out that I'm doing some more. And see, the main thing I'm trying to do is to capture their personality and some of their speech patterns. It doesn't have to be perfect, just enough so that it feels and sounds like them. And I can't think of, I was trying to think, I can't think of any instance where anybody said this is absolutely lousy. No, they've all rather liked it and said it sounds like them. And that's always makes me feel good when I get that kind of feedback.
Right, that editor was right. You have a gift for stepping into people's shoes.
Apparently so.
And I can't wait. Now, you brought a lot with you, and we're going to get into it in just a minute, and we will be right back on Deeper Living. Welcome back to Deeper Living. Our guest today is Cecil Murphy, and we have been getting into a little bit about your career, the breakout book with Ben Carson, and you've written another one with Sean Alexander. And tell me a little bit about this book and his story.
Well, Sean played at the University of Alabama, and I'm not much of a football person.
Okay.
I have to be very honest with you. This is one of the things I like about being a ghostwriter is I learned on the job, you know. Anyway, Sean contacted me about his second or third year when he was playing with the Seattle Seahawks. And frankly, to be honest, I wasn't interested. But just to be sure, I checked his website, and he hooked me. Here's how he hooked me. He started a nonprofit organization when he was still in college, before he had any money, before he ever knew he'd go into the NFL.
Wow.
And he came from a one-parent home in the Cincinnati area, and has just always had this burden and this vision to help other kids, particularly black kids. And I thought, oh, this guy's got to be real.
Yeah.
And so I finally agreed to meet with him. He flew me out to Seattle, and you know, I just fell in love with this guy now. I'm 5'7", he's 5'11 and a half. And when you hug him, it's like hugging this big box of steel. But he's also one of the warmest, most genuine people I've ever met. I mean, this guy is genuinely, he's genuine. He's so real and so down to earth. And I just loved working with him.
Yeah, and this is just recently won an award, right? Retailer's Choice?
That's right. At the International Trade Show for biography, they have several categories, and that was kind of nice to win that.
Oh, yeah. Well, how is this book changing people's hearts when they hear his story?
Well, I think there are a lot of these people like Michael Vick who've had all kinds of problems, and he's not the only one, there are a lot of them. And I think Sean Alexander is able to be a really positive example to kids. And the thing that we emphasize so much in the book is his giving back, giving back, giving back. This guy who's a Christian, he's absolutely unapologetic about it. I mean, he's not obnoxious, just unapologetic about it. And if you watch this guy smile, you can almost radiate something special. And I think just because of being who he is, and during the summer when they're off, he'll do a lot of Fellowship of Christian Athlete camps, and he's constantly speaking to kids and teenagers, and that's his burden.
Yeah.
To reach those kids. He said, you know, I've always wanted to help these other kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's commendable.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like when you start to walk in other people's shoes that their stories are really impacting you, too. How do you think your life is different today for sitting with some of these great men?
You know, nobody's ever asked me that question before. It certainly has had a powerful effect on me. What I realize is, I think to realize the grace of God. And I see how God works in various people. And you know what? So many of these people are different than I am. And I don't mean just ethnically different. I've worked with females. And one of my favorite ones was a woman on death row, a woman who was executed for murder, which she did, which she committed, but became a believer. And, you know, I've just learned so much just by being with them. You know, it's like this. Ginger, I feel in many ways like as if I'm a psychiatrist, where I'm sort of listening to them, and I do, but I also absorb some of their story, and I think the more I understand them, the more it gives me an understanding for the human race, for other people, and I think I'm far less judgmental about other people than I used to be.
It sounds like you're also a lot more hopeful.
Oh, yes, yes. You know, I want to say to everybody, you know, it's not too late.
Yeah.
It's just not too late.
Yeah. And you've seen grace poured out in these people's lives over and over.
Yes.
But none of these stories are easy stories. None of them had a snap right to the finish line.
Well, frankly, if they had, I probably wouldn't have written them. I get those too. You know, I have a book called 90 Minutes in Heaven, which is right at the top of the bestseller list.
We'll talk about that.
It's been on there for 40 weeks. Well, when that book came out, suddenly I'm getting emails almost every day. I'm getting an email from somebody. I had a near-death experience. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. And, you know, and they're really special stories. I don't want to put any of those things down, but what I try to say to them is, I've already written that one.
Yeah,
I don't want to write the same story again.
Right. You're a student.
Yeah, I want to keep writing. You know, for instance, I've ghosted 3 different diet books. I've never been on a diet in my life, but boy, have I had fun learning about nutrition. You know, and so I've written, I did a book one time on suicide, how to prevent it, of course, not how to do it. And, you know, I've just had so much fun. I've done a couple of athletes, a restaurateur. I've learned a lot about life.
Yeah.
And as you were very good, it kind of helps me learn a lot about myself in the process.
It sounds like when you accepted that lunch invitation with that editor, you did not know that you were about to start a big adventure.
It never occurred to me. Now, I had a friend who was a ghostwriter. She used to write, remember Anita Bryant?
Sure.
She wrote all the Anita Bryant books. So I knew, she was a good friend, and you know, we'd been close friends for several years. So I knew what ghostwriting was, I knew the process and so on. It never occurred to me that's where I was going.
Yeah.
I wasn't even interested.
And then here you are, one of the most successful in the world. You have to be.
You know, I really am. I'm really grateful for that. Statistically, we say that about anywhere from 1% to 3% of the population who are writers make a living as a writer.
Right.
And I've been so blessed by God. I've been living as a writer since 1984, and primarily because of my ghostwriting.
Yeah. But you have written a lot of your own stuff.
I have, yes.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we want to get into.
And that's my cutting edge right now.
Oh, well, and you've got some great topics. And anything that we're talking about is available today on DeeperLiving.com. So visit our website, and we are going to be right back with Cecil Murphy. Welcome back to Deeper Living. Our guest today is Cecil Murphy, and you are one of the best-selling ghostwriters in the world. But you don't just listen to other people's stories. You actually have written some of your own books, haven't you?
Well, I started out writing my own books, and then there was a period for about 10 years, from 88, 89 till 97, when I didn't write anything but other people's. And you know, I have to be very candid with you, it was a wonderful way to hide. My wife kept saying, you know, you have things to say, and I would say, everybody knows that. And she'd say, no, you know it because you think about it. But there are people who need to hear what you write. So I started about 97, 98. I started writing my own. So I'm writing them, my own books now.
And tell me about this series, the series for daily encouragement. How did this, I know that every book is born of a struggle, so how did this series come about?
First, I was a missionary in Africa for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was a pastor for 14 years and a volunteer chaplain during most of that. And so this comes out of my pastoral experience. I've started 3. I've got another publisher who's looking at some other in this series. I really want to do a book called When Somebody You Love Is a Prodigal.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I was a pastor, this had been in the late 70s. It's the first time I encountered Alzheimer's.
Oh,
And it really broke my heart. Tell you one quick story. We would take communion to the shut-in every month. His name was Tommy. And Betty, his wife, was there to be with him. And one day we came, and he was standing there holding a toothbrush, just looking at it. And she started crying. And she said, yesterday he knew how to brush. And so she took his hand and moved it up and down his teeth, and then he completed the action. And see, that's, I'd heard about it, I knew about it, but I saw it in action. And Alzheimer's is memory impairment. What it means is you lose your brain cells, your memory, and you do not get it back. And it broke my heart. And I worked with him and with other people. And my mother had dementia. There are several kinds of dementia. Alzheimer's is just one of them. My mother had dementia. And then we took care of an elderly relative for 7.5 years who actually died of cancer. But memory impairment was starting to come, and she was beginning to get some of these same sorts of, some of the dementia.
And so just out of how you learned to show grace and the lessons that you needed to learn, that's where these books came from?
Yeah, you know, my wife said to me, once you're a pastor, you're always a pastor. And I suppose that's true. There are a lot of issues that concern, you know, what's called the people in the church. And just because I'm no longer behind the pulpit doesn't mean I don't care. And I still feel that there's so many needs out there. And with my background, and God called me to write, I feel that it's a natural kind of path to take.
Right, and I'm holding the one, When Someone You Love Suffers from Depression or Mental Illness. What are the other two that we've got up here?
Well, When Somebody You Love has Alzheimer's, and When Somebody You Love is, what's this?
Let's see, I've got the depression.
Mentally ill.
Okay.
I have to look at it. Or drugs or alcohol.
Well, you've written so many. So how did you choose these 3 topics to start this series with?
Well, these are really actually revised of some books I did in the late 80s. And it came because a publisher, and I talked about it, he wanted me to write about pastoral two things, pastoral concerns. But see, Ginger, 2 things I want to put in these books. I want to put some absolute significant information, something that's helpful, practical. I also want each one of them to be, give a kind of an uplift, and I want every one of them to be only 1 to 2 pages at most, because people who are caregivers don't have time to sit around and read a lot.
Right, that's very smart.
So I did that, and they sold fairly well, and then I revised them and have reprinted them. And the series has now done quite well. It's a very small publishing house, but despite that, it's done very well. And so I'm talking to another publishing house about continuing the series.
It seems like with these books, and even with your ghostwriting projects, that you have a heart for ministering to people, that you have a heart for showing them grace and hope. Would you say that that message really has
Well, thank you for saying that. I hope that's true. You know, I like to think that I care. And the nicest compliment anybody ever gave me was when I first started to write. I just barely published, maybe 10 articles. An editor said to me, you know why I like your writing? He said, you write with heart.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I think that's true. And you know, and that's a gift. It isn't anything that I don't know how to, I teach writing, but I don't know how to teach anybody to write with heart. You either do or you don't.
And do you find that the people that are starting to look for your name on the cover now, do you find that they have a certain expectation of what they're going to find when they open the cover?
I have no idea. I like to think that when they see my name, they know it's going to be quality.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
I don't even have any idea how to answer that question.
I think, go ahead.
I do know this, that when they pick up a book that I've written for someone else, and by the way, today, they're not calling me a ghostwriter, they're calling me a collaborator.
A collaborator, okay.
Yeah, here's the rule. If your name is on the book,
okay.
And if it says with, that means that the with person did all the writing.
I'm learning. Okay, I need to get a with person.
Right. Yeah, and they did all the writing. But and now they're also calling it a collaborator. But if we see and, then it is a true collaboration.
Perfect. Okay. What good information. Well, we will be right back. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more with Cecil Murphy. So stay with us.
Every good and perfect gift comes down from heaven above. Every good and perfect gift from above. Every good and perfect gift comes down from heaven above. Every good and perfect gift from above. From the Father of lights, from the Father of lights, who's always the same. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, every good and perfect gift. Let's all sing it together. Comes down from heaven above. Every good and perfect gift from above. Every good and perfect gift. Every good and perfect gift comes down from heaven above. Every good and perfect gift from above. From the Father of lights. From the Father of lights, recruited. He's no changing. From the Father of lights, who is always the same. Praise the Lord, oh, praise the Lord, oh, yeah. Up we go. Praise the Lord, oh, praise the Lord, oh, yeah. Every good and perfect gift comes down from heaven above. Every good and perfect gift from above. Every good and perfect gift. Every good and perfect gift.
Welcome back to our final segment today with Cecil Murphy. And tell us about this book that is just chewing up the bestseller charts, 90 Minutes in Heaven.
Well, Don Piper was killed in an automobile accident in 1989. He went to heaven, and somebody came along and prayed him back. That's all I want to tell you. I have to read the book.
Okay, we could spend an hour just on
Yeah,
that.
and it's a great story. But I will tell you this. When Don first approached me, I turned him down.
Really?
I didn't believe him. I said, I'm not interested in near-death experiences. He said, this is not a near-death experience. I really died. He refers to Paul's trip to paradise in 2 Corinthians 12. Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. But he said two things that finally convinced me. He said, if I had only been a temporary thing, I would have either bled out in that 90 minutes, or there would have been irreversible brain damage. After 6 minutes deprived of oxygen, you're gone. Neither of those happened. And so he finally convinced me. Of course, it took him 6 months to convince me.
Wow.
But you know, once I started working, I knew Ginger. It's one of the 2 times I've known this is going to be a big book.
Really?
I really, not this, I didn't know it would be this big, but this big. And so we did this book together, did very, very well. We did a second book called Daily Devotion Inspired by 90 Minutes in Heaven. We have a third one that just came out called Heaven is Real, and we're getting ready to do a fourth one, which is still untitled, and then we're through.
Wow. Now, how big, now, give us a picture of how big this is.
Okay, this is now August. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list 40 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and today we learned that it was number 3 on their nonfiction paperback category. And it's hit close to 2 million copies now.
That is amazing.
Just slowly moving up. And we really believe with Heaven is Real, which came out, they did an initial print of 145,000 copies, that they'll bump each other up.
Right, right. And why are people responding like this to this message? Is it the hope?
Yeah, it's a good question. In fact, a lot of times they introduce Don as the minister of hope.
Yeah.
And he does. He's such a great guy, so genuine. And he really offers hope to people. And not only that, to people living, but he also is a way of saying to them, you know, these loved ones that are gone, you don't have to worry about them. They're okay.
Yeah.
You know, they are not, he says they don't know what's going on here on earth. So you don't have to worry about they're going to be weeping and sad in heaven because they're fine.
Yeah.
You just need to be good so you can get there.
Yeah. Is there one story out of these all these books about heaven that you're working on with them? Is there one story that really sticks with you?
You know, the one that touched me the most is a soldier in Iraq who was dying. They knew he was dying, knew it was terrible, and the nurse who was with him had a copy of 90 Minutes in Heaven, and she read most of it. And so he was a believer, and so she told him about the book, and he asked her to read it. And the first 6 chapters are about heaven, and the rest is about recovery. And he smiled, and when she finished that last section about coming back to earth, he smiled, thanked her, and died.
Wow.
And she said he died with this wonderful smile on his face. She wrote us an email, so I have this documented.
Yeah.
So that's the one that really touched me the most.
Oh, and do you just, you just weep over some of the emails you get?
Yeah, and some of them are so poignant, so touching. I'm just constantly amazed. And Don has touched a lot of lives.
Well, Cecil, you have brought us some of the greatest stories of our generation, and we thank you for your work, and we thank you for being a guest here today.
It's a real pleasure. Ginger, you're wonderful to be with.
Oh, well, you make it so easy. So thank you, too, for joining us, and be sure to check out our website, DeeperLiving.com, and bye-bye.